Hello, everyone. We're live. Hi, this is Laura Rogers. Welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. This is a weekly show that we do live where we talk about business solutions in SharePoint, which is basically anything in SharePoint that doesn't revolve around writing custom code or having to do anything central admin or PowerShell-y. So everything else, like it can be topics like governance or user adoption, or we'll do demos on things like workflows, forms, BI topics, it just any out-of-the-box functionalities in SharePoint that exist, which there are a ton of them. So my colleagues from Rackspace and I just take turns doing demos and taking questions the whole time. So we'd love to hear your comments, and I think I have this playing in my browser. I do that every time. As I'm starting the demo, I have this site open in my browser, and then it starts with me talking in the background. Okay, so what we're going to do is today's demo is going to be a continuation of last time. I did a part 1 on an HR onboarding demo of just building out an entire HR onboarding site just live, just going through and all the different clicks and all the different fields and workflows and everything just in front of you, and just talk about it as we go and take questions as we go. But before I get started on the continuation of that, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. Again, I'm Laura Rogers. I'm a manager of SharePoint consultants at Rackspace Hosting, SharePoint MVP. My blog is wonderlaura.com. I've been doing SharePoint for like 10 years or something. So, Joelle, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then Tavis.
My name is Joelle Farley. I am a SharePoint consultant as well, and I work a lot with this kind of stuff. I do a lot of things like planning, design, governance, also training. SharePoint Designer workflows has been something I've worked on quite frequently, as well as InfoPath forms, just all the form stuff with SharePoint. And I started with SharePoint 2007. That was the first version that I worked with several years ago. And I work with SharePoint every day, and I still do it. So obviously, you know, there's something good about it.
Fun. Okay, Tavis.
My name is Tavis Lovell, and I deal mainly with Microsoft BI type of things. So I've been working with SQL Server since about 2004 or so, and have really focused on just the BI stuff inside of SQL Server and SharePoint. And I do also have a blog at www.tavislovell.com, where I post about my BI encounters.
BI encounters.
That didn't sound right. Do I get a do-over on that? I'll be here all day, folks. Make sure and tip your waiters.
BI encounters.
Tavis, BIencounters.com. Tavis also teaches an SSRS class. It's a 4-hour class. And I forgot to mention that I teach a Power User class. It's a week-long online class, and also it's sharepoint.rackspace.com/training if you're interested in any of those. And I'm going to go ahead and dive into my demo and kind of overview where we left off, etc. So let me start sharing my screen.
If for any of our regular viewers notice that my background is no longer the space mural, it's true. I have moved. There is no longer a space mural.
Oh, I thought something looked different.
Yeah. I know there was a few people in the comments that mentioned my space mural, so I figured I'd say that.
Did you take it down, or did you just?
It just didn't make the move. It was an old paper thing, wallpaper thing, so it wouldn't transfer well.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to let me get the Q&A app launched so I can see when you guys have questions. So if you're watching on YouTube, there's a little button that will take you over to, like in the corner of where I'm talking right now, that will take you over to the Q&A app, which is actually in the Google Hangout. But as you ask questions, I'll see them and be able to answer them live as I go. And then if you're watching in YouTube, you can use the comments in YouTube. It's just not as like a fluent experience as the one over in the Google Hangouts is, because the Google Hangout one ties it to the video. So as people are watching it later, it will, like if you click a question, it will actually take you to the part in the video where I answer the question. It's pretty cool. So anyway, here's my screen. And this is our onboarding demo site that we started working on last time. And what we did so far was we've created a new hire form, and we created all the fields in the form. So what I did was I created all these as site columns, and then created this form and added all the as a content type for a new hire, added it to this list that I created called the new hire list, and then went in here and created a promoted links list and just created this one button so far that will let you fill out the new hire form. So now we're going to start talking about the workflow itself. So the workflow is going to be, it's going to have a few steps, and it's going to basically be a combination of, did I stop sharing my screen? Okay, anyway. It's going to be a combination of some parallel tasks and some serial tasks, which is going to be more like what you'll see like in the real world. Is a more complex workflow. So the reason I'm building this is because I wanted to show that, you know, there are some out-of-the-box workflow things that you can do, like using the little task actions and the task, which is the task process designer, in your workflows. But the thing about that is, with a lot of these just real-world scenarios, it doesn't. There are a lot of things that you can't necessarily do as well, like especially parallel tasks and having more complex tasks. So that's why I'm building this workflow, to show you, or like a real-world solution of a more complex workflow where I'm not going to use any of the out-of-the-box just sort of workflow actions and things like that in this workflow. So do I need to? Am I still sharing my screen or no? Because it looks like I'm not.
Yeah, I can see it.
You can't? I can? Okay. My little camera started blinking and it made it look like it's showing my face again. Here is, so this is on my screen now. You should see a Visio diagram on a PowerPoint. Do y'all see that? Yes? No?
Yeah, we see it, and I'm keeping an eye on YouTube too, just in case.
Okay. So this is what we're going to be building in this as we go. So people submit a form, it has to get approved by that person's manager, and then it has to, three things are going to happen at once after the manager approves it. HR is going to get assigned a task to send a welcome packet. IT is going to need to create a user account, and whoever's in charge of phones is going to have to set up that person's phone at their desk. And then after all three of those happen, then we have a little condition in here. If the person's an IT employee, then IT security has to do some special extra thing with them, and then HR approval is the next step, and then after that happens employee orientation class. They're going to go to the employee orientation class. Okay, so that's just the gist of what the workflow is going to be doing. So I'll go ahead and show you. First of all, I'm going to fill out a form just so we'll have an item in our list, and then as we're creating our workflow, we're going to be just kind of like triggering the workflow, and so we'll at least have one thing on our list. So I'm just going to say, let's see, I'm going to put Todd in here. Todd is in all of my demos and all of my books. I just gave him one of my books the other day, and he flipped to the chapter I had written, and there was his name in there. So company, we could just, this could be Contoso really, but we could just default this. When I created the site column, like when I used the site column called company in here, I didn't want to put a default value in the site column called company, because that means anywhere that anyone else uses that site column in the whole site collection, that would be the default. So what I can do though is I can put the default value just in the list itself, in my new hire list, so I can do that. So let's see, Todd's going to be the janitor, and blah, 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 blah. And then you'd fill out all this stuff. I'm just going to at least have some values in these and not just leave them all blank. He lives in Ames, Iowa. Don't know what his zip code is. Okay, so USA. And then I can make some notes if I wanted to. And then this part is, what kind of employee are they? Are they corporate executive operations? And I can also have variables in my workflow to say, like, make it do something different or make it have like a different due date according to, like, if they're executive, if they need to go through the process faster or something like that. So it's just kind of something to keep in mind. And then what I'm doing over here right now is I'm opening up SharePoint Designer in my VM so I can look at the workflow I already created while I'm creating the workflow for you so that it's more efficient. All right. So I've got SharePoint Designer open. I need to open this site. So I'm going to grab the URL to this site. So I'm just copying that, and I'm going to SharePoint Designer, doing open site, paste it in there and click open. And it's thinking about it. All right, so SharePoint Designer is opening my site. So what I've done already is I've filled out a new hire, and I can always just go to my new hire list here to see there's the item that I filled out. And this is also something where I'm going to want to, sorry, my phone's ringing. Okay, I'm going to want to edit the way this view looks as well. So while SharePoint Designer is opening my site, I'm just going to go ahead and do this while I'm thinking about it. So this is just my default view of the new hire list. And some of these fields aren't as important. Some of these fields, remember that I hid them using the content type. I actually made them so they're not showing on the form when you fill out a new one, and that business phone and email address are a couple of those fields that I hid. Okay, so what I can do is I can just go, I'll just go edit this view. I don't need to see company there. They're pretty much, most of them are all going to be in the same company. Some important things I'm going to need to see here, not necessarily their home phone. I'm going to leave business phone and email address there, and I'm going to say employee type, hiring manager is important, and I'm trying to think of basically things that are going to be important in the workflow itself. Hire, click OK. All right, and let me go double check something. Let's go look at the content type that I'm using. New hire demo, that's the content type I'm using. And then remember, so these are some of the fields, and I just went in there and hid them in the content type, like business phone and things like that. New hire status is hidden. I need to make sure that's in my list. I didn't see it there. Let me go double check that. Hire status. I don't see it there. That's interesting. Okay, let me see. Okay, so what can I do, or Joelle, or one of you guys, what do you normally do when something like that happens to where you put something in a content type and then you don't see it in a list that's using your content type? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go try and just like edit this and hit save. Like if I go edit anything in my content type and I click OK, it usually like takes all my changes that I made and propagates them down. Let's see. Has that ever happened to you, Joelle? Maybe I can make it not hidden. All right, and let's go look. So I unhid that one column. Oh, I'm going to authenticate. Okay, let's go see if that did it, if that did the trick. All right. All right. And Joelle, I can't hear you if you're talking.
Yeah, I think I was on mute.
Oh, okay. I figured you were talking. See, okay, so it still didn't put it in there. So what's one like a desperate measure that I can take if it's still not showing in my list when I went ahead and made sure that it was in the content type? I can actually just go directly at it. I shouldn't have to do that though, but that's something that if you notice that certain fields, and I've noticed that that happens sometimes when you hide them too, when you notice that they're not showing in here.
Yeah.
And just go add it.
Did you add and remove the content type? Like from...
No. No. From this list? No.
Yeah, like remove it and add it back or something. I don't know.
No, and that's not. I'm not going to do that because that, like, if I was in production, I had started adding stuff to the list already. That would be a big mess if I tried to do that.
Yeah.
So where did I put that? Where did I put my custom? It's called hire. Good grief. I don't even see it in there. What am I missing? Site content types, new hire demo, hire status, put it in there, made it optional, yes, update all content types inheriting from this type. Okay. New hire demo is the content type, and I'm going to go to my list again, and I'm going to double check the content type. Here it is, new hire demo. And I'm going to see if I can add it from here maybe. Let's go look at where that content, where that actual site column lives as well. Site columns. And my, oh, you know what? My virtual machine always takes a minute when anything has to do with site columns. So it could be a timing thing. Okay, so there's my new hire group. I called it hire. Oh, look at that. So I didn't, first of all, I didn't categorize it in the right place when I created it. So all I have to do is go put it in my group, in my correct group, right there. But sometimes when I do that after the fact, when I think of like a site column later that I need to add, when I go add it, I'll just go forget that I have a custom group to put it in. I don't know if that happens to you, but that's what I do. And then the grouping is really just a visual thing, though. It just kind of keeps stuff, you know, organized for you. So there's hire status. It's in my new hire group. Let's go back to the list. There it is. Look at that. It appeared. So it appeared there in the content type. It might have just been a timing thing. I might have just not been patient enough. There it is. Look at that. Okay, so what I want to do is now that it's showing in the list and I can see it, I don't want this to be something that's shown when people are filling out the form here. I don't want them to see this, okay? So I'm going to go back to the content type and I'm going to hide it. So I unhid it just so I could do my troubleshooting, just to make sure that it would propagate down to the list, just to make sure I could see it. But I really don't want this showing. So I'm going to say hidden, and yes, I want to update all the content types inheriting. Okay, so I'm just going to be patient with that one. I'm going to give it a minute. So I went ahead and opened up my site in SharePoint Designer. And then once I've opened up my site in SharePoint Designer, I just go to Workflows. And I can see these just out of the box ones that are in there. What I want to do is I'm going to create a workflow just directly on the new hire list here.
Hey Laura, we actually had a Q&A come in, but I think it may, I don't know if they're just a little delayed or not, but it was actually talking back to the whole content type column issue you were having. It said that they have that happen, they just edit and mark it optional, then save and mark it, hit it, and save again.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
Cool. All right, so I have. Okay, so this is going to be new hire. And it's a 2013 workflow. This runs on create and blah, blah, blah. Whatever my description needs to be. All right. Okay, it's creating my workflow for me. And now I have a blank 2013 workflow. And I know that there's a cool new like visual editor now in 2013. I don't tend to use it. I don't know, maybe it's just a familiarity, like a comfort thing for me. I tend to just keep using the just the text-based designer that I'm so familiar with, but it does exist if you have Visio on your computer that you're using SharePoint Designer on. You can just go in here and use your actions and your conditions and just drag them onto this little as shapes onto this thing. So what I'm going to do first is we have the manager approval concept, but what I want to do is talk about the tasks that I'm going to create. So as I'm creating tasks throughout this workflow, what I'm going to do is use the action called create list item to create my tasks. And that way, instead of using the task process designer, with this one I have full control over all the fields that it creates, all the values it puts in those fields. I can add a lookup to it, and I have total control of what it's doing when it creates that task. So I'm going to use that. Now, what I've noticed though is it's kind of a negative thing in 2013 workflows is, in general, when I create workflows, I like the workflow to just run, go through its steps, be finished, and then just the next time the thing gets edited, the workflow runs again, and like use logic in the workflow to just look at values in different fields and do something and then be finished. I like the workflow to be finished every time, and I don't like to have to wait for it and let it run and run and run. Well, in 2013, what they've done is, like if I wanted to do something like have a task over in a task list, right back to the original new hire list once the task gets completed, which would trigger a change and trigger the new hire workflow, they've actually taken that ability out now, unfortunately. So when I change an item, when I run a workflow like in my task list that triggers a change in another list, and I have a workflow that's supposed to run on change, it does not trigger the workflow, does not run on change. It only will run on change when someone actually opens the item and edits it and hits save. So this is a huge debilitating factor for me in how I've always created workflows. So what I would like to do is to have a bunch of tasks get created, and then have, as the tasks get completed, those would write back to the onboarding, to the new hire list, and trigger the workflow each time. But I can't do that. So what I have to do is let my workflow run and run and run, and then wait for things to happen. So that's just the concept that I'm doing at just kind of FYI as I go. And you'll see that. All right, so this is, I like to name my stages. So I'm going to say this first approval is going to be manager approval. And I do have another stage that I'm going to add above this, but I'm going to kind of talk you through like when I get to the point where why I'm adding it and that kind of thing. All right, so my first stage is manager approval. Why do I like to name my stages? Because they will, the actual name of the stage will show in the list when the workflow is running, and it's based on this little checkbox over here in the settings that says automatically update the workflow status to the current stage name. So that's going to happen, and I'll show you what that looks like also. All right, so what I want to do is I want to say I'm going to give this person 2 days to complete this task. So my create list item action is what I'm going to use to create a task. There is a task list that's going to exist that's created called workflow tasks, and a lot of the times I notice that the list doesn't even get created until you've published your first workflow on the site. So I can just check real quick, and I can see that workflow task has gotten created, but that's one thing that you might notice is that you could just create a workflow and hit publish, and that would just create your task list for you if it doesn't exist yet. So, all right. So I say create an item in my workflow tasks. And another thing that's going to happen when I've published my first workflow is that it's going to have some special content types in the task list that it's going to create. And since I don't see like the content type field automatically showing here, I just happen to automatically know that it hasn't done that yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to publish this blank workflow. And it's just going to give me an error because I didn't put a go-to item in here yet. Go to nothing into the workflow. You always have to have a transition. So even if my workflow doesn't do anything, it's just logging nothing, it still has to have something in the go-to just to be able to publish it. So this is just like a little trick that I'm going to show you with the whole workflow content types thing that I'm talking about. So let me go ahead and do that again. Do create a list item and workflow tasks. And look at that. So you'll notice that this content type ID exists now. So let's go over to my list and see what the heck this is. Go over to my, see it just got create workflow tasks. So I'm going to go to my list settings here, and I'll notice, see, it's got task and workflow task. So what I've noticed is that in SharePoint 2013, when you use the little built-in task process designer that's like the task actions in your workflow, it uses this new content type called workflow task, SharePoint 2013. And it gives the person filling out the task, it gives them pretty little buttons called like approve, reject, or whatever your outcomes happen to be. So it actually is a nice way of doing a task form as opposed to, and I'll show you what a regular task form looks like, as opposed to a regular task item, which is just got a bunch, it's got a bunch of basic information, but it doesn't have like all those pretty little approve, reject buttons on it. See what I'm saying? So you'd have to just basically hit the, change this drop down to completed, and you'd have to do, you wouldn't have like built-in buttons. So that's just one of the things that I've noticed in 2013 is that when you use the content type called workflow task SharePoint 2013, it gives me like a prettier task form to deal with. So I'm going to use that. So what's my task name going to be? So this first one is going to be the manager approval. So I'm going to say combine, let's see, manager approval, let's see, approve new hire. And I can put the person's name in here. I can put first name, space, last name, like that. And so then that way that would be the subject. That could be the task name, and that could also like make that the subject of the emails and things like that. So approve new hire, first name, last name. So that's how we combine different fields together. And then percent complete, we can just make that default to nothing. I just usually like go down the row in alphabetical order through the fields. Who's this one going to be assigned to? So this one's going to be assigned to the manager. So in this case, this is the hiring manager field. So this is hiring manager right here. And I'm just going to say, I always just use the login name when I'm dealing with a person field in here. So whoever the hiring manager is, that's who this task is going to get assigned to. Who, let's see, what's the next field we need to fill in? We already did content type description. So just put something like, please approve or reject this new hire. And due date. So this is something I have to set a variable for. So I'm not going to set that yet. Priority, I'm going to also set a variable for that as well. But I'm going through this just so you can see where I'm skipping a couple things, because there are extra things that I have to do actually before I can get the task created in the workflow. Start date, I can just make it default to today. If I do today though, current date, that's going to be midnight. I don't like it to have midnight in here. I like it to actually be like right now. So I'm just going to say when this item got created or modified, any of those built-in fields. So I'm just going to say right now when this item is being modified, that's going to be considered the start date of this task. Okay, and then task name, I already did that. Outcome, not going to fill that in. Status is going to be not started by default. Okay, I also need another field. I want to have a lookup field in my task list. So I want my task to have a lookup that takes it to that new hire so that there's a relationship between the two lists. So what I'm going to do is go over to my task list. I'm going to go to my list in here, and I'm going to create a lookup in my task list. Now, instead of creating a lookup in here, I'm going to use content types. So I'm going to delve into the task content types in a minute, though. I'm going to go back to the workflow and do these other two variables. But this is another sort of little side note or something that I have to remember to do. Okay, I have two variables I want to do. I want to do what's the due date going to be, and what's the priority going to be. So I can say make it a certain priority if it's an executive versus anybody else. So let's see, any questions so far? No? Okay, cool. Feel free to ask questions as we go, guys. 27 viewers, all right. Okay, so I'm going to do a new stage up here, and I'm going to say set variables. I like to just keep it nice and organized here. So what I'm going to do is set, say if it's an executive, I want the task priority to be high. So if any value, if my employee type equals executive, set a workflow variable of what? I'm just going to say priority. Make it nice and descriptive here. String is just text. And I have to type. So the way it's got the names of the priorities that exist in the task, it's got like the little number with the parentheses in front of it. So set the priority variable to high. Otherwise, so I got to do my little else if. Otherwise, set the same workflow variable. Otherwise, set the priority variable to I think it's normal is the medium one. Okay, so now I don't have to do anything. It's just saving me a little bit of work to just have this done ahead of time. Another thing I like to do, just a side note, is instead of people. Oh, cool. Okay, thanks, Tavis. When starting a workflow, you don't have to always start with if 1 equals 1 anymore like you did in previous versions of SharePoint. You never had to do that, Tim. I've never done that in my life. I've seen people do that, but you don't have to. You can just start off with actions, and you don't have to have a condition in there. All right, so another thing I like in here is there's a first name field, a last name field, and a full name field. So instead of making people fill out the first name, last name, and full name, which is kind of redundant, I can just do an additional step in here and say set field value. So like set field and current item, set full name to, and I'm just going to put those together. Say first name, space, last name, like that. That's just a little extra thing I like to do in here just to save time. Okay, so and if it's executive, the priority value, and then I have to have a transition, so I'm just going to go to the manager approval, like this. Okay, so then I'm creating my item, so now I can put my priority variable in there. So set field priority to, I'm not going to pick a value from the drop-down box. I'm going to pick a workflow variable, priority variable, like that, and it's just text. I'm just going to say string. And now I need the due date. So I'm actually going to put the due date in here because it's going to be different. For each approval, I'm going to have to figure out the due date each time. So I have to use an action in here called add time to date. So I'm going to give them 2 days to according from now. Oops. So from, I'm just going to say the modified. Again, if I use the little current today thing, it's not going to give, it's going to give me midnight. I don't want 2 days from midnight. I want 2 days from right this second. So add 2 days to whenever it was modified and give me a variable. I'll just say 2 days from now as a date time variable. Okay, so now another variable is it created this workflow, this manager approval task. So I can, it's spitting out basically the ID of whatever item it just created. So I can use that later in my workflow. I can make this something more meaningful. I just like to give them better names. So I can just say manager task, like that. Okay, and let's see. You know what I did? I'm just going to use the same variable for all of them. So I'm just going to say task do it, and that's saving me variables, because the more variables you have just floating around in your workflow, it actually makes the whole workflow more inefficient and takes it longer to load and stuff like that. So I can actually keep these nice and clean as I go, and say I'm not using that one, I'm not using that one, I'm not using that generic date one it created me. These are the ones that I named myself. Those are the ones I'm using. So I can keep those cleaned up as I go. If you accidentally delete one that's being used, it will, the next time you publish your workflow, it'll show like a little, or if you do check for errors, it'll show like a little red asterisk next to the one you accidentally deleted, and you can just fix it. Okay, so now I create my task. I have to put the due date in there now that I have my variable. So workflow variable of 2 days from now. Like that. Okay, or I could just call it due date. Either way, if they're all 2 days from now, we just use that. Okay, so now I like to let's go ahead and let's see. Let's go run it and watch what it does. I like to run it every now and then. And I'm going to point something else out too as I run it. So I'm going to go back to my list and go ahead and just going to run it on this existing item. And my workflow is only set, when you first create a workflow, it only sets it to run manually anyway. So okay, so now it's running. So now first time you run a workflow, it actually, adds that column there to show the name of the workflow itself. So now I can see the name of my workflow there, and I can see what stage it's in. See, that's huge. So that tells me what stage the workflow is currently in. So there's nothing showing here. That's because I didn't put any logging. So you're not going to have any idea what's going on with your workflow if you don't just build some logging into it. So I'll go ahead and add that. So I'll say log, and I can use the ellipsis. I can say priority set to priority variable because employee is, and then I can even just put the employee type. So that's extremely detailed of logging that I'm putting in here. And then I can say, log date. And I can even say what the variable value is in here if I want to get a little more specific. So I can say date variable set to what, and I can use my little value to show it in here. And then I can even log manager task created. That way, when my workflow runs, I'll know what the heck is going on. So I can go over to my task list, and I can actually see that my task got created. I still need to do the lookup field, so that's going to be really important for me in being able to create like a relationship between the items. Okay, so notice when the person hits edit item, see it says approved or rejected in here. That's what I was talking about with those tasks. That task content type has those built in. All right, so let's look at the task content types. Go to site settings, and site content types, there is this built-in content type under my list content types called workflow tasks. So that's the one that I'm currently using. I'm going to be modifying my different the task forms, not necessarily for the manager approval. So for manager approval, I do want them to approve or reject it. But when I get to the other three, the next three parallel tasks that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to have different things I need people to be doing. So for the welcome packet that HR needs to send out, it's going to be basically they're just going to have a button to say they completed it. And for the IT person setting up the person's IT account, email account, and basically their user account in Active Directory, I'm going to actually have a field in the task for them to enter that person's user account. I'm going to put a people field in the task itself. So that way, as they're completing the task, they'll have the information they need, and they just put the person's field information in the task and hit complete. And that way they don't have different places they have to go, and we don't necessarily have to give that person access or point them to that original form at all necessarily for them to have to edit that original new hire form. So for people that need to get input from them from what they've done, like creating a phone number and creating an account, we're going to put the fields in the task form itself. So, and then they're not approving or rejecting, they're just completing their task. So they're going to have a different outcome for theirs. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a custom, I'm going to use this workflow task for the approvals, for just like the hiring manager has an approval, just approve or reject, so it's fine. I'm going to use that, but I'm going to create a couple of other custom content types for the other types of tasks. So I'm going to call this new hire phone task. I'm going to be very specific. Gets assigned when new hire's phone number Okay, you guys are very quiet. 26 viewers, no questions. Okay. Y'all just must be absorbing information. And then it's very important that you pick, as the parent, it has to be this workflow task. All right, and then I'm going to lump it together with my new hire group as well. All right, so I'm not going to use the outcome, which is approved or rejected, that it's going to give me. I'm going to do a new site column. I'm going to say task completed outcome, like that. And this is a task outcome site column. So again, if I want to have some outcomes other than approved or rejected, that's where I have to create it. It's as a site column in a custom task content type. So I'm not giving them any options. It's just basically completed. All right, and click OK. And then also for my new hire phone task, I'm going to have an additional field I need them to fill out. This is a site column I already created. So remember that was one of the benefits of creating all my new hire fields as site columns, was the fact that I can use them in multiple lists. So I have my new hire group, my new hire, where's the email? Oh, you know what? Business phone was a built-in column, site column. So I didn't create a new one. I just used the built-in one. So I think it's called business phone. I can double check in my list to make sure that's the one that I'm using, though. Let me do that real quick. I'm just going to open that in a new tab. Make sure that's the name of it. It's not called something else. So business phone. Yep, business phone. That's the one. So that's just an out-of-the-box site column that exists in SharePoint already, and that's just the one I'm going to use. Okay, so business phone. So now, as they're filling out the task and completing it, they have business phone in here that they can fill out, and I can actually move that up too. Move it up a little higher in the order as that's going to show in the form that they're filling out. All right. I think I'm gonna get rid of this one. I'm not sure if I have to though. I'm gonna leave that alone for now and see if let me see what I did in my other environment. Let me double check that. It'll just take a second just to make sure, because I like to be super careful with these out-of-the-box content types and messing with my task list, because I don't want to. It's just kind of delicate. I don't know if you have that experience too, but it's kind of delicate when you're. Yeah. Okay. So that's what I did. I removed the default task outcome. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to say, this is my custom content type, and I'm just going to remove the out-of-the-box one because I only want to use the one that says completed. Okay. Now I have another content type, but now I have the new hire, the actual new hire itself. I have this new hire phone task that I created. I'm going to do another new one, and I'm going to say new hire account task. And that's going to be from also just I'm going to use that parent of workflow task as well. Used when new hire needs a new account. All right, parent workflow, existing new hire group. Okay, so now here are all my fields. I'm going to add from an existing site column. This is the one where I need the new hire account to be filled in. Is this making sense so far? Anybody? Does this look familiar? Does anybody do this kind of stuff already? Or is it intriguing? Is this new stuff to you? I'm interested in your feedback as we go. Even if you don't have questions, you can just chat about it. New hire account. There it is. All right. Click OK. And then I have another existing site column, which is going to be that custom task outcome for completed tasks that I created. So now I'm going to add another existing site column. And that's going to be, let's see, where did I put that somewhere special? Task completed outcome right there. Okay, so now I can get rid of my approve and reject outcome, which is this one. Okay, so task name, blah, 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 new hire account. I'm going to move new hire account up in my column order up to number 2 there. Okay, and now I have to, now that I've created two new task content types, I have to go to my workflow task list, and I have to add those. So go to list settings and add from existing site content types. So new hire account task and new hire phone task. All right, and then actually I have one more, because the person that's doing the HR welcome packet does not need to have a field to fill out a phone or an account. They just need to click that to complete something. So I have yet another site content type to create. I know this is a little tedious, but it's going to make it a lot prettier. And I'm not using InfoPath because I want you to be able to know what the alternatives are to doing a lot of just making forms have something custom in them besides having to use InfoPath since it's going away. So of course the stuff I'm doing with the custom buttons and the custom form could very easily be done with InfoPath as well. So new hire completed task.
We got a lot of comments as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll look at that and see as we finish, or I will mess up if I start not paying attention to this. Parent content type, list, workflow task, and then I need to put it in my new hire group. And then this one just needs to have that custom site column. Andy Honeycutt says this is good stuff. Thanks, John. Appreciate your learning a lot. Let's see. Let me do this real quick. Let's see. It's a New hire group. Custom task completed outcome. Okay. Now, and I'm going to get rid of the task outcome. Remove. And then one more step, I have to go add it to my task list. Add from existing site content types. Our completed task. Chase says, I'm creating new hire workflow in 2010, trying to figure out the best way to assign multiple tasks to multiple people within a single task email. So I want to get IT to get a task assigned that has login, create phone. Cool. So Stacy, that looks very familiar what you're trying to do as well. A lot of the same type of stuff. So you're going to be, hopefully this logic we're going to be doing will help. Thanks, Jonathan. Good to see you in here, Jonathan. Thanks, Tim. I'm glad you appreciate it. You're going to try it yourself. Cool. Awesome. And thanks, Scott, for the feedback. I appreciate you all being in here and having those conversations. Okay, all my tasks have been created. Task content types have been created and have been added to my task list. I don't need those to show in the drop-down box when people are, if they go to here, try and fill out a new task. So I'm not going to uncheck those right now because I'm not sure what that's going to affect. So I'm going to leave those alone, actually. Okay, so now I've created a bunch of content types. I need to go refresh my workflow, though, so it will know that I changed a bunch of stuff. And I've only got 8 more minutes, so I'll probably have to continue this next week. Does that sound okay? I'll be like a 3-hour, maybe even, who knows how long it'll take, how many hours it'll take to build the whole thing out. I could just keep adding and adding to it, right? You never know. Just make my own requirements. Okay, so now I did my manager approval. So what happens after the manager approval? Somebody needs to go complete a task, basically. So create item and workflow task. I'm going to look at that again. Content type is workflow task, priority, due date, and I need to do the lookup field. So that's another important thing that all my tasks need to have. So I'm going to go back over and create a new site column. Site columns. And again, everything with site columns in my VM takes a few seconds for some reason. So it looks like episode 38 is going to be HR Onboarding Part 3. Okay, create.
Did you have something else too you were going to do?
Yeah, I had something else I was going to do. I'll just skip that. I was going to do like out-of-the-box signature workflow.
Oh, okay.
I can do that some other time.
Yeah.
New hire lookup.
John Stein just said scope creep.
Scope creep, yeah, I'm just making up the requirements as I go, just like the real world, right?
You're the fun kind of client.
Okay, so this is going to go look, I'm going to put it in my new hire group, and looks up to the new hire. This is where it's going to help to have my full name field, that is going to have been written to from the workflow to fill that out. That way I'll get to see their first and last names as opposed to just having to pick one of them from the drop-down, which would not be unique. So full name is going to be great to have in that drop-down box. And I can also pull across other fields. We might need to do that later. We'll just figure that out as we go. We might not need it. We might need it. Not sure. This would be to pull additional fields about that new hire over to the task list. So I'm not sure if we're going to need that. And actually, I don't even need to use full name. I could just use ID if I wanted to, because no one's going to be filling this out themselves. It's just going to be written to as the tasks get created from the workflow. Okay, so now that I've added the new hire lookup field, I've created it as a site column. I need to create that in all my, it needs to be in all of my task content types that I'm going to be using. So one thing that I could do is I could just go add it to all the content types. I have that out-of-the-box content type also that I'm using in my task list that I don't necessarily want to mess with at the top level there. So just for consistency's sake, instead of going and adding it to the content types, I'm going to add it to the list here add from existing site columns. I'm just going to stick that in the list. I'm not going to... If I click Add to all the content types, what it's going to do is it's going to add this as a drop-down box to all those forms, and I don't necessarily need it to do that. I just need the field to exist in there so I can use it for myself behind the scenes. So now that it exists, now when I'm creating tasks from my workflow, I'll be able to use that. Thanks, Derek. Glad you appreciate it. All right. So I refreshed the workflow to make sure that I get now my new field that I've added to the task list. So now when I create that workflow task, I have to, I'll say new hire lookup. And this is going to be the ID of the current item. So right now, this workflow, I'm creating it on the new hire list. I'm using the ID of whatever this new hire is when I'm creating that new task. So now that gets created correctly. So I've got like 4 minutes left. Let me see what else I can do. I'm going to... So what I have to do is once the person completes the task, I'm gonna need that when the task gets completed, I'm gonna need that workflow to do something on this list, because my next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to wait. So I'm gonna do wait for field change in current item. I'm gonna wait for the new hire status. Where's my new hire status? Where did I call it? I called it hire status, sorry. Hire status to equal onboarding in progress. Because when someone completes the manager task, I'm going to have it right back to this item and change the hire status to onboarding in progress, which will make the workflow move on to the next section. So the next stage is going to be the 3 parallel tasks.
Hey Laura, there's actually a question out on the YouTube site. It says, where can we purchase InfoPath 2013? I've only found it available on midsize enterprise 365 with a minimum number of licenses.
From what I think it's, I don't know, it's part of Office.
Yeah, you can't purchase InfoPath 2013 separately. Only 2010 was the last one you could purchase separately, from what I remember.
Part of, I think, Office Professional. I'm not sure
Yeah.
all the different types of Office.
It's Office Professional 2013, I think, is where you can get it.
Or if you're on TechNet, maybe you can download it separately. I could have sworn I did that. Maybe not.
Okay, maybe.
Maybe not.
I just remember I had a client that was trying to get it, and we ended up they had to buy 2010 separately because they didn't have Professional or something.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and publish this. I'm going to run it one more time. And then I'm going to have to, got an error, forgot to put a transition in there, so I created a new stage, and then I didn't put a transition in it, so it gave me an error. So it saved my workflow, but it didn't publish it. So what I'm going to do in here is I also need to know when the manager does something, I need to do something different if they don't approve it as well. So I need to account for that. So this is something that I'm going to need to put a condition. Instead of just going to 3 parallel tasks, I'm going to need to know what they did with that task. Did they approve or reject it? So if, I can put an if in my transition. If, and this is where I have to go look at the task list now. So I have this unique ID. I have this task ID of the exact task that got created up here for the manager approval. So I have to know that to be able to go look and see what the value is in that specific task. So if task list, I'm just going to go workflow tasks, if outcome task outcome equals, where, so then I have to match it up, and I got to stop now, but where the GUID of that task is equal to this workflow variable that I have. That's a task GUID. That's where I'm matching it up. If it equals approved, I'm going to do something. If not, I'm going to do another thing. So I'm going to leave off right there. So this is where I'm going to say go to 3 parallel tasks, or else I'll say like go to rejected or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to have to stop. Any quick announcements? We got SharePoint Saturday, Baton Rouge coming up June 21st. I'll be speaking at that. Anything else going on, Joelle or Tavis?
SharePoint Saturday Atlanta's coming up that same weekend.
Same day?
Yeah.
That was such a tough call.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Howard. I'll have to ask me that next time when we come back, and I'll have to answer your question then, since we got to stop. But I'm going to be continuing this next week, Wednesday at 11 Central, and I'll see you guys then. Thanks.
Bye.